All right, it's great to be here. Today I get to talk about two of my favorite things, Git and content management. And the clicker's not working. There. My name's Mike Neumegen. I'm the co-founder of Cloud Cannon, and you can find me at Mike Neumegen on Twitter. So let's start by talking about why we're all here. Git, an amazing tool. It's changed how we develop software, and it's really created a new wave of open source development. Now we have a global community of developers who are building very high quality software together without ever having met each other in person often. It's such a powerful tool that it's a shame that the rest of the population doesn't have access to it. There's 83 million people on GitHub, and there's a lot of internet users who don't even know that Git exists or what's possible with Git. And so if we peer through the blinds of what the other people are using, we have things like Wikipedia, Dropbox, Google Docs, Notion. These all have elements of what is possible with Git, version control, content collaboration, some sort of concept of pull requests or like reviewing things, but none of these can really hold a candle to what's possible with Git. And so that's really what a Git-based content management system is trying to achieve, is it's bringing the power of the workflows of Git to a less technical audience and making this technology more accessible. And the real goal is to have this unified workflow where you have the developer using Git workflows to develop websites or software. The Git-based CMS is syncing any changes that's coming from Git and putting it into a user interface where a non-technical person can easily edit the content. It has an interface for editing text or images or whatever assets they need. And then when they save, that's going to commit back to the repository. So we get this unified workflow with Git at the core. And typically, because you want everything as text in a Git repository, you want to store your content in Markdown or front matter. So naturally, a static site generator is a very good fit for a Git-based CMS. Everything's just text-based, and static site generators are great at dealing with Markdown and front matter. And the types of use cases that Git-based CMSs really excel at is the more like static-y websites. So something like a marketing website, documentation is a great one. There's a good chance that the website is already using a static site generator. Microsites or supporting websites of sort of the main corporate website, a blog, legal pages, about pages, all that sort of thing. Client websites if you're an agency, or small e-commerce websites. So these are use cases that typically can, and in my opinion, should be static websites because they're going to be a lot faster, a lot more secure, reliable, and scalable, but often aren't because you need a non-technical person to update that content. So then you deploy a dynamic content management system and add a lot of different complexity layers in there in order to have a non-technical person updating them. And so with a Git-based CMS, if you tell a non-technical person, okay, you need to branch to create a new copy of your site, you're instantly probably going to lose them. Branching sounds really scary, whereas making a new version of a website, not so scary. So if we change some of this terminology for non-technical users, then we can get more in line with the type of workflows and terms that they're used to. So Git becomes save, branch version, pull request review, status checks reports, merge is a publish. And so now let's step through some of the basic functionality that you might do in Git, and talk about how that works in a Git-based content management system. So first up, we have making changes. Developers, we're in the code editor, we're making changes. If there's one thing I know about non-technical users is that they don't like code editors. So that's an instant no. Instead, what we want is some sort of GUI where they can edit the content for a website directly on the page, and there's no guesswork. They can see exactly what that content will look like right on the page. So they can add assets, they can change the order of components, move components around. It's that visual editing experience, but behind the scenes, it's all powered by Git and a static site generator. So next up is committing. No terminal. There's a good chance that your content editor or marketing person doesn't even know what a terminal is. So instead of committing, we have an analogy that works, save. When I click save, I know that the state of whatever I'm working in is going to be saved somewhere. I don't really know where or care where. And so for a Git-based CMS, behind the scenes, that's doing all the Git magic. But from the user's point of view, just hit save, and it saves. Branching. This time, we're going a little bit less technical with a Git GUI, like GitHub Desktop. Even with this, it's still fairly technical. I've got a code diff here, and there's just a lot of terminology that's really aimed at developers. That's, in this case, difficult to train a non-technical person on. So instead, we can talk about versioning and really simplify the interface, where I have different versions of my website that I can switch between, and I can create new versions of my website. For pull requests, there's a couple of things you probably want to, as developers, we typically do with pull requests. So the goal of the pull request is to have a discussion about changes and ensure it's as high quality as it can be. And one way of doing that is a code diff, of reviewing those changes. So editors can have something similar with a content diff. We don't want to show any HTML or source code to them, but we can show quite succinctly what content has changed between versions. So they get a really good idea of what is changing between the old version and the new version. And there's a couple of ways we can do this as well. So another way is visual diffing. So here I have an old version of the Git Merge website and a new version, and I can windshield wipe between them to see what the changes are. Percy is a popular visual testing app that does this as well. So it'll take two screenshots, the old and the new of the website, and overlay them and highlight what's changed. So there's a lot of different ways of visually representing what's changed between two versions without having to rely on a code diff. Status checks. These are great for ensuring software is of a high quality and using machines to do tasks that humans don't want to do or just aren't very good at. We can do the same thing with content, but instead of reviewing code, we're really ensuring the content is of high quality. So we can do things like an SEO report and prompt the user to fix up a title or improve the SEO in different ways. Accessibility. Ideally take a lot of the load off developers, and some of those easier accessibility things just have the editors fix. Same with broken links. It's can be very difficult and time-consuming as a human to find broken links, but if there's a broken link report, it'll pick them up straight away, and the editor can fix that without having to rely on a developer. Pull requests often have conversations about whether this pull request makes sense for the project or what it would take to get over the line. It's the same with content. How can we make this content higher quality, and what needs to happen before we can publish it? And the best way to do this is inline directly on the website. Get that feedback where it is, where it's in context. And this doesn't just have to be editor-to-editor feedback. Because this is a Git-based CMS, this conversation can feed back into something like GitHub. And then, there might be feedback for a developer here. So then you're having this conversation between tool sets, and everyone's just using an interface that makes sense to them. A merge. We're not even going to try and explain merge strategy to a non-technical person. This decision probably needs to be made up front. But what we do want to do, again, is provide as much context as possible on when I click that publish button, what's going to happen. And particularly for more advanced branching strategies, it's hard to escape some sort of Git tree or visual representation of what's going to be, what's been merged or what's been published. So often with content management systems, we have this trade-off that we're really weighing up. On one side, you have the editing experience. We want to provide great tools for editors to empower them and just be less reliant on a developer to make changes. On the other side, we have developers that we want to empower with tooling and interesting ways of accessing content and using it in different applications. And so something like a website builder, it's often prioritizing the editing experience, where if you think of Wix or Squarespace, an editor can set up an entire website by themselves without talking to a developer. Once you reach the limit of that tool and then you need a developer, that's where things really become limited. It hasn't been designed with developers in mind, so it's kind of added on, and it's fairly limited in what a developer can actually do. So yeah, great editing experience, but limited for developers. On the other hand, we have headless CMSs, which are really built with developers in mind. They have incredible APIs and ways of accessing and manipulating the data that can be used across a lot of different use cases. But the editing experience is often just trying to fit in with those APIs. So we essentially just get form fields that fit the content model. And so what we're really trying to do with a Git-based CMS is blend those worlds together as much as possible. Have Git as the foundation for everything, and then have tools that are really empowering editors to not be reliant on developers. And this is what we're really trying to achieve, this unified workflow that has Git at the core of it. And if we can achieve this, then we can have large teams on either side collaborating on these websites, just like we do on software. To finish off, I just want to give you an example of the sort of workflow that's possible with this approach. So here we have the Git Merge website. There's a spelling mistake. This isn't the actual website. I did this. And so me as a user, I don't have access to the source code. But I've spotted that spelling mistake. So I can go in, click the Edit Me button on the Git Merge page. It's going to bring up an inline editor. I can just go and type and fix that that spelling mistake, publish it, which creates a pull request. And then on GitHub's side, maybe they have someone non-technical managing this website. So they can use a non-technical tool set to review that change, know exactly what is going to change, and publish it. Or chances are they have a developer managing it, in which case they can go into the pull request on GitHub, same review process, using the tooling that they want. So it's really a choice, and it gives a lot of options. but it really brings those workflows together. And I think if we can do that, like Git and the surrounding ecosystem has created this global community of open source software development, I think we can do the same with content and create a global community of content developers. And that's what we're trying to do at Clark Kingham. Thank you for your time.